One of my least favorite parts about being a middle school history teacher is this bullshit living history assignment that we give to kids each year. Kids are supposed to sit down with their grandparents and videotape, voice record, or transcribe oldest memories of posterity. It was an easy way for them to get up their GPA. I've been doing this for 17 years. When I collected the projects this time around, I assumed it would be dull, not duller than usual. If this class had not been so particularly bright, I may have not thought this. So I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and prepared for a long night of "I only owned 2 pairs of pants when I was your age," and "My brother got beat with a newspaper for hitting a baseball in your neighbor's yard." And of course, the projects were peppered with innocent, old person comics that were so horribly sexist and racist that you just had to laugh. Now, I had a girl in my class whom I will call Olivia. She was pudgy, quiet, proved herself as a consistent B student. I expected her project to be unremarkable as her, and that's perhaps why I found it so profoundly disturbing by what I witnessed that night. Olivia had submitted 2 discs for some reason, so I began the one marked interview. My screen hiccuped before twice a grainy image of a living room came into view. The place was a hoarder's hell. Olivia was curled up in an armchair clutching a notebook and looking like a scared animal. Across from her sat a man with a somber countenance, smoking a cigarette, staring at her expectantly. "Go ahead," a woman's voice whispered behind the camera. Olivia's owlish eyes flashed back towards the screen and then the man. "I am here today with my great-uncle Stephen," she said inaudibly. "He is going to tell us his oldest memories from being in the army." Great-uncle Stephen looked like he'd rather been in a goddamn trench at the moment, but he waited patiently for the questions to begin. Not surprisingly, Olivia read the verbatim from the suggested question sheet I had handed out from the students. He answered her curtly. Once or twice, I heard the mother whisper, "Speak up, Olivia," behind the cameras. Typical boring shit. I was so intrigued when Olivia set down the notebook and asked, Do you like being in the army?" I was totally off script. Great-uncle Stephen emitted a chain smoker's wheeze. "Nope. Glad to get out of my country, though." "Where did you go?" "Balkans." "Uh-huh," she said. I doubted she knew what the Balkans were. My suspicion was confirmed when she asked, "Was Balkans very different from here?" "Yes." Mom cleared her throat from behind the camera, perhaps encouraging Great-uncle Stephen to give a little more forthcoming. Olivia seemed generally interested. "Uncle Stephen," she said, "what is your very worst memory from the army?" The old man crushed his cigarette in the ashtray and slowly lifted him out of the chair. "I'll be back," he mumbled. The camera cut off. When the screen flashed on, everything was the same except Great-uncle Stephen had several pieces of paper in plastic sleeves laid on top of the scrap-sitting coffee table. He had one held in his hand. "I was a kid when I was enlisted," he said to Olivia. "Your brother's age," he told her. Olivia nodded. "I never saw combat, but both of my developments were to cities in Eastern Europe that had been destroyed by many civil wars. Everything was a mess. I felt like a janitor's for fuck's sake." "Ahem!" Mom coughed. Great-uncle Stephen sighed and looked at the paper. "My unit was assigned to a school that had been obliterated by all the violence, broken windows, caved-in rooms, and for some reason, the part that got to me worse was that the school had been like this for years. No one had lifted a finger to fix it. I saw kids walk by it in their way and beg for money, do whatever shit they did. The camera dipped down, and at the floor as I heard his mother whisper harshly at Great-uncle Stephen. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but it wasn't hard to imagine. "Do you want to hear the goddamn story or not?" I heard him bark in response. "Then you better let me tell it how I want." "Mom," Olivia chimed, "please stop interrupting. Are you presenting this in front of the class?" "No, Mom. We're handing it in to the teacher. I'm sure she's heard the worst shit before." Great-uncle Stephen contributed helpfully. I wasn't a he, but as a matter of fact, the other statement was accurate. I was talking too much anyway," he grumbled. He lifted a piece of paper in his hand close to his face. "In the basement, I found this letter. I didn't know what it said, so I had a buddy of mine translate it. So I'm going to tell you what I saw in that basement, and then I'll also read it. A chill ran down my spine. The mom zoomed in, great Uncle Stephen in his letter. His parlous hands trembled as he held up the paper, and this is what he read. Dear Sir, I never loved my country. So many of these skirmishes are born from patriotism, power struggle of shards of once great empire, but I do not care what my home has on a map. This fighting is senseless, and I stay as far away from it as I can. It is not these attacks and disorganized violence that took the lives of my wife and child. It was illness. Mercifully, it happened quickly for the baby. Nadia suffered longer. I watched in horror, knowing I could do nothing for them. My only solace was that I was there every step for them. I was going to stop working one day, but no one came after me, so I did it anyway. I doubt they would notice I was gone even, since the school was simply across the field, visible from my window. It was so easy to get a few hours each day and come home quickly to take care of them. But what was the point? All I did was clean floors. I was useless to this world as my family. I tried to take Nadia to the hospital, but the journey was too long and taxing. I brought her home, and she died later that night. After Nadia and the baby were gone, well, I don't remember much. I didn't sleep in my hovel, barely ate and slept. Thought of many times of taking my own life. Tempted though, it was. I felt paralyzed by my own helplessness. One thing kept me sane. It was my radio. I never turned it off once. Even though I didn't listen to the words being said, in fact, the channel I got clearest was in English, I think, which I don't speak a lick of. But the voices, the music, and the true knowledge that life existed beyond this violent city sustained me. I have no idea how much time passed before I saw the light of day again. I was dizzy from hunger, so finding food was my priority. My radio came everywhere with me. It talks to me as I sleep and as I awake. I don't know what it's saying, but I know I would die without it. Once I had some food and water, it occurred to me that the only thing left was to do was go back to work. I simply returned to the school where I was a janitor and got back to work. Nobody made a big deal of it. Like I said, Nadia had been sick for a long time, and those who worked at the school knew it. I appreciate that no one pestered me to come back to work during the hardest days of my life. Teachers never said much to me, but we smiled at each other in the halls, that mutual respect that perhaps the reason I decided to come back for it all. This place has gone the dogs without me, so I simply grabbed my broom and my rags from my closet, set to cleaning. Everyone is grateful to have me back, I know, and the best part is, no one minds my radio. I keep it everywhere with me. I turn the volume low enough to not disrupt anyone or the students. No one has ever complained, in fact. I suspect they like it. The schoolhouse is not very big, but it does require a lot of maintenance. The floors are always sticky and stained, and I spend most of my time mopping. Kids make messes. I guess that's why I'm still in the business. Sometimes I have to move things around to make sure I get every spot on the floor beautiful and clean. But I take pride in that. And the repairs. The school always needs tune-ups here and there. I am happy to help. Sometimes I'm reconstructing a desk that broke as I was whistle along with the radio. Other times I handle more serious structural issues. Days when I have work like this, I truly feel instrumental, like a cog in a larger machine. How could this school survive without me? It took me a long time, but I felt that I had a purpose again. There's a larger behind. The school is fully preserved food. In lieu of payment, I am allowed to take as much food as I want. That arrangement is fine. What would I do with my own money anyway? I used to bring food back to my home, just one field away from the school, but I started sleeping in the basement. since no one noticed. The school is special, and I cannot leave it unguarded. When I am besieged with my memories of my wife and baby, I turn up the radio and drown out the thoughts. It works for me every time, except for this morning. Because of this morning, I woke up in dead silence. I frantically examined the radio to see what would happen. I honestly cannot tell you how many days in a row I've been using it. Did it simply live out its life and die naturally? I have spent most of my entire day trying to fix it. Most of my time I have been crying. I am losing my mind without it. I have been given myself until sundown. If I cannot fix it by then, I am going to take my life. I am writing this because the sunlight is starting to die, and I know what my fate shall be. I have thought about one last walk through the halls and saying goodbye to the students and teachers. I know I will be missed, but I cannot bring myself to leave the room. I cannot go anywhere knowing my radio is dead in here. There are no more tears in me. It feels like I can't catch my breath. I vomited what little food I had in my stomach, but I was growing dizzy again. Like I did after Naja died. I am not long for this world. Before I take my life, I have closed the door to this room and stuck a chair beneath the handle. It is the only room in the basement that has a small casket, just to let me lie enough, and if anyone is kind enough to come looking for me, they should not be met with a gruesome sight. Perhaps they will see the door be blocked by the smell of my rotting body and simply forget I ever existed. But I have both my radio and this note outside the door. Kind sir, if you are reading this, I have one humble request. Please fix it. Save my radio. It does not deserve to die in its sleep. I am ashamed that I cannot revive it. Now I am ready to join Naja and little Lumila in heaven. I hope this school can find another janitor who cares for it as I do. Hours now. Do not forget my radio. Stanislav. I'm zoomed back out. Olivia had tears in her eyes. Thank you for sharing, Uncle Stephen. Mom said as her voice choked. I think we've had enough. Wait! He said there's more. What did you find? Before Great Uncle Stephen could open his mouth, the image disappeared and my jaw dropped. Is that it? What did Great Uncle Stephen see? I promptly removed, and there was a second disc. This one was unmarked. I hope it contained the rest of the interview. There was no video, only audio. The voice that started up was Olivia. Hi, Miss Skirty. I'm sorry about my mom. She refused to record the rest that my uncle was saying. I asked him to continue the story and secretly recorded it as my phone, the voice memo on my phone. I remember you said earlier this year that history is written by people who win wars. She sucked in her breath and commenced crying. But everyone's history is important, even if they're sad, pathetic people, and they never learn a single thing in their life. I hadn't slept through the night since I finished this project, but I want you to hear what my uncle has to say. There were tears in my eyes too. The sincerity in her words was beautiful. I was flattered that she remembered a trite phrase I knew threw around because it was my history teacher said it to me. Before I got sappy over it, the audio began. Fine, came Mom's frustrated voice. If you want to hear the rest of the story, but not for this appropriate for the school project. Let me finish. Uncle Stephen snapped. If it's too much for you, help yourself to a snack in the kitchen, but Olivia wants to know what happened. I heard my mother mumble something and walk away. Olivia and her uncle were alone. I imagined her looking at him. So what did you find, the radio? Or did it get ruined and the school got blown up? He rasped as I heard a distinct click of a lighter. That letter, he began slowly, had a date on it. What date? She said hungrily. It was dated 2 weeks before we started rebuilding the school. Didn't you say the school had been destroyed for like 2 years? Yes, replied Uncle Stephen. It had been. There was a silence. I felt goosebumps in my arm. The images that came in my mind were almost overwhelming to express, but Uncle Stephen put them in the words effortlessly. Clearly, he spent his whole life thinking about it. This man, this Stanislav, went to a vandalized, falling apart schoolhouse, cleaned up the blood and rubble, and spilled drinks and dust. He smiled at dead bodies at the hallway, who believed that they were smiling at him back because they liked his radio. He moved around corpses so he could sweep them under the ground. The roof was half collapsed, so when it rained, he must have gotten soaked and wet. That wasn't obvious, but he didn't feel a thing. Could hear Olivia crying sadly. Found the larger he was talking about. It was all pickled, preserved food. It probably tasted like shit. Most of the stuff was moldy. Did you see a dead body? Yes, hanging from the ceiling, but still amazingly lifelike. It wasn't rotting away. This hadn't happened years ago. Did he look peaceful? She asked in a core desperation of her life. Couldn't tell you. The smile was rank and his face was blue. His eyes were bulging like this. I imagined him demonstrating. In the radio? She wept. I heard Great Uncle Stephen take a long drag of a cigarette. It was there all right, and it was still on.